Okay, so this is going to be the last edition of, I guess, CAD TV. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the final piece of our robot, which is the belly plate, as well as make some final touch-ups to the side plate, as well as look at how to do a little bit of weight relief. Okay, so I'm going to go through this a lot quicker than I've done before, so that you can just kind of take a look at the dimensions that you need. So if I go to my main assembly, you can see that here is my robot that we want our robot to kind of look like at the end of the day. And there will be other pieces being put on the robot, but that will be much later. So let's just get to making the belly plate as well as finishing off the side plate. You'll notice right here that there are a few extra holes on the side plate that I need to put on, as well as some of these holes for the belly plate. Okay, so if I take a look here, you can again adjust this to be the way you want it to be if you need to, but if you follow me, you can see that I have created slots along the bottom of my robot to put my belly plate in, as well as slots for my L brackets after putting my belly plate in as well. Okay, so let's get to making the we can start making these slots. So I'm going to go into this part here, and there are two things that are different with this side plate now. One is the addition of these slots for the belly plate, as well as these slots here for the L brackets, but also you can see that there are these set of 4 holes on each side, and what these are for churros to hold our gearbox together and make it sound a little bit nicer. Previous iterations of this robot in other classes have made it sound like a pile of rocks, and so we want to make ours sound a little bit nicer than a bag of rocks. So let me take a look at this extrusion here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into, I guess back here. So let's say that this was your robot before you, or your side plate before you made out these extra cuts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this cut that we made, and I'm going to go into the sketch and give you an idea of how this sketch looks. Basically what I did is I created these 2 slots here that are right next to my teeth. I think you already had these. Again, this is 1 inch away from the inner side here, 0.75 inches in width, as well as 8.2 millimeters in thickness. What you care about are these holes here, and what I've done is I created a center line here and a center line right there for reflection, as well as I created a center line of these 2 lines that basically intersected to tell me where I'm going to put my churro. So for instance, if I deleted these 2 lines here, delete 1, delete 2, you can see that I can move this hole all about, and all the other holes similarly move about with them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a center line from this point here outwards, make sure it's straight. I'm also going to create a center line from this point here outwards, that's straight to there. And just for posterity, I'm going to bring this point back right there so it's locked on top of each other. And so now you can see that this point is exactly where the horizontal line from this hole and the vertical line from this hole meet, and that's where I'm going to put this churro hole. This churro hole is exactly a quarter of an inch in diameter, and we're going to add an extra hundredth of an inch, so 0.26 inches in diameter. I then reflected across this line here, as well as this line here, and to give me these 4 holes here. And then what I did is I took all of these 4 holes here and reflected across this line here, and so I've created, you can see these 2 or these 4 churro holes. So I'm just going to exit the sketch, and it will re-extrude them, and so now you can see that I've created these holes. Now, for the other holes, I'll go into the sketch for these ones, and I'll show you the dimensions. What I did is I made this in the same sketch as the tabs on the top, or these slots on the top, and for the bottom what I did is I started one slot exactly 9 inches from the center line. I made it 1.01 inches wide and 5.2 millimeters thick, because we're going to be using 5 millimeter polycarb. And then I did a linear sketch pattern along this direction by 6 inches each, so 6 inches, 6 inches. And then I also put a slot, just like I've done before, where I made it an inch away. That shouldn't be 0.65, that should be 0.75 inches, and I made it 6 millimeters across, or 0.24 inches across, and then I reflected it across this line. Notice how I'm not putting slots in the center area, so that I can leave more room for weight relief. And similarly, these slots here, I didn't put them right on the bottom because I want the ability for gravity to be fought by the thickness of this metal here. And so I gave an extra 1/4 of an inch from the bottom here to where my rectangle here begins. Okay, so those are the dimensions that you have to care about. So I'm just going to click on OK with that and exit the sketch. And so this is my side plate. All right, I'm going to go on to the belly plate. So we can go ahead and create a new file if you haven't already, or if you have created a belly plate, open it up, and I'm going to just kind of start at the beginning. And so the beginning and belly plate that I started with, again, you can make this whatever you want, but I made it 24 inches wide. The reason why I made it 24 inches wide is because that is the total width of our robot. Our total width of our robot is 2 feet wide. I made it 22 inches in length, and you'll see why I made it 22 inches in length later. You could make it longer, but you're going to have to put some extra cutouts for some other purposes later on. So let me move forward. After I made this rectangle, I extruded this rectangle by 5 millimeters. So that's over here. It says 0.20 inches, but it's really just 5 millimeters. And so let me scroll this forward, or roll this forward. And then what I did is I made cutouts to create these little tabs that came out. Let me give you an explanation on the size of these tabs. The width of these tabs is exactly 1 inch. And the width between the tabs, essentially I made boxes, and I didn't really care about the size of the boxes. I just made sure that the width of the tabs were 1 inch, and the distance between the center and the last tab was 9 inches. That's what we had before, and the distance between the center and this middle tab here is 3 inches. The center of the middle tab is 3 inches. That's what I did here. But you can do this in whatever way you want if you go back to your previous sketch of the distance between those slots that you created. And then I just basically mirrored all of this through these two center lines here and here. And so that's what created my my extrusion here, or my extruded cut here. So the depth of the slots are 2.25, or the depth of the tabs are 2.25 inches. The width of them is 1 inch, and this distance here to here, if I remember correctly, I think it's 6 inches between each tab, and 6 inches between each tab, and 3 inches from the center of the plate to the center of this tab, and 9 inches from the center of this plate to the center of this tab. So you can define it however you want, as long as you make sure that you get these dimensions and the dimensions right on your actual robot. Okay, so I'm going to now roll this forward a little bit more. I'm going to exit the sketch, and I'm going to roll it forward to my next cut extrude. My next cut extrude are just these little slots here. Again, as I always do, these are 0.75 and 6.2 millimeters in width. The difference that I made here is that I made this slot perfectly centered on the tab instead, as well as then reflected it across across the center line here. And then I did another reflection across this line for that tab, and I did all of these tabs and reflected across this line for these tabs up here. Okay, so you can copy these tabs and put them into your extrusion. Finally, what we need is a bolt pattern in order to actually put things into this plate. So this is going to be made of it can be made of anything really. It can be made of aluminum if you want, but I like to make it out of polycarb just because it looks a little bit nicer. And so I'm going to go into this sketch and show you how I did that. This is probably the simplest thing that you could do. I basically created a 5.2 millimeter hole right here, smack dab in the center. I used two center lines to find out where the center is. And then all I did is I did a linear sketch pattern in this direction, and that in the down right direction, and then I did a reflection across this line and a reflection across this line. If you take a look, I'll just show you the measurement between each hole. In my case is 2 inches. You can make it 1 inch, but I would prefer if you make it 2 inches because you don't actually need a regularly 1 inch hole bolt pattern, because that is probably too much. So if you made a 1 inch hole bolt pattern and you want to change it, go ahead. If you don't want to change it, it's probably going to be okay, because as long as you make this out of polycarb, because the cut won't take too long. Okay, so that is it. That is it for the belly plate. Once you import this into your main assembly, you'll basically have a fully functioning robot that kind of looks like mine. Over here, hopefully yours looks. Oops. Over here, hopefully yours looks a lot better. Hopefully yours looks a lot better than this. There's a couple of aesthetically pleasing things that I would like you to try and do. The first thing is to fillet the edges. So there's a few edges of this robot that could use some filleting. And so, for instance, this piece here, let me go into this, open this part. This piece could certainly use some filleting on this corner, this corner, this corner, this corner. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Features, I'm going to click on Fillet, and then I'm going to click on the part that I want to fillet. Now I'm not going to move away after clicking it, because there's a bunch of things that I can do. Now, if I don't want to click on all of the corners that exist, I could click on one of these boxes. Unfortunately, clicking on any of these boxes is going to ruin your fillet. Or your robot part, because it's filleting way too many corners. You don't want to actually fillet this many corners. What I want to do is I want to make the fillets just internal to this particular feature, which is just this extruded portion here. And so that should automatically, if I press this again, do internal to feature, you'll see that I only have 4 parts that are going to be filleted. So I'm just going to click that. And my fillet radius, usually 2 millimeters, is probably good enough. I'm just going to press enter. And you're going to see that it's created these nice rounded little edges. If I want to, I can make it look really nice and edit the feature here, and maybe change it to like 4 millimeters. And so now this has created a nice little portion here. I could have also edited the feature and I could have clicked on this as well, and oh, this goes crazy. Not connected to start face, connected to start loop. Nope, nope. Oh, concave. No, I don't want all concave either. I can just click on a few extra. Click on that one as well. Click on that one as well. And click on that one as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this even nicer. I'm going to make this like 6 millimeters. 6 millimeter radius. And so you can see that it's created these nice little rounded edges on here, and this is something that you're not necessarily going to cut yourself on. You can also do a fillet on these tabs, but you can't do the ones, do fillets internal to the tab. So if I wanted to do that, I could click on fillet. This is kind of a nice way to keep yourself from cutting yourself when you actually create this. So I don't want it connected to start face, and I don't want it connected to start loop. What I do want, though, maybe I'll click on the next one. Hopefully it will tell me I want all convex. No, not all. No, not connected. Left feature, right feature. Nope, unfortunately, it does not give me the option to do that. And so I'm going to go back and click on this fillet, edit the feature, and then hopefully I'll click on another one, and it will allow me. It's just not allowing me to get any of the extra things. So if I want to keep myself from cutting myself on things, I can fillet all of the, basically all of the convex edges. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just keep going all along the top here, including these pieces up here. It gets really annoying, but it becomes worth it once you end up cutting this material. Otherwise you get really, really sharp corners, and you're going to have to manually fillet them yourself, and that will take on the order of about a half an hour per piece. And since you're going to have several of these pieces, you really don't want to do that. You really want the water jet cutter to do it for you. So I'm just going to fillet, fillet, fillet. And I think I've got them all. Oh, I don't have this bottom one here. And done. I filleted them way too much, so I'm going to change them to probably about 2 millimeters. You can see that I've like basically made these nice rounded edges all across the top. That has made my robot way less sharp than it used to be. So what I'm going to do next is show you how to make some relatively good looking weight relief. So I'm going to go back to my robot base, and I'm going to go to my front plate. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I have a little bit more space to work with on my front plate, and I don't have as much interference, as well as the fact that I need to also fillet my front plate. So let me go there. Almost done. If you accidentally click on something, you can just click on it again and it will deselect it. Alright, and that is good. And I'm just going to change that to 2 millimeters as well. Okay, good. And so there is my fillet. Now, what I'm going to do is just kind of show you some basic weight relief. Now, if you are the most uninspired artist in the world, such as myself, then what you can do is simply just make triangles. And because of my love for symmetry, I like triangles which are relatively symmetric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a center rectangle. I'll worry about its dimensions later, and I'm just going to make a couple of slots. I'll make another slot here. And you can see that I've now created 4 triangles just from this one box. And then I can similarly make a linear sketch pattern of this, so maybe I want 3 across. And you can do all other sorts of patterns that you want on this for weight relief. Obviously you don't want it to be so much weight relief that the whole robot's going to crumple. But you can see that I can do either mirror entities or linear sketch pattern. I'll just do a really boring linear sketch pattern where let me select all of this first, linear sketch pattern, and we will make it like 10 inches or so. Oh, that's too much. Maybe like 7 inches. 5. That looks pretty good. I'm going to press OK to that. And then I'm going to make a center line and reflect it. Take this and reflect it about this line here. Oops. Okay, and so now you see that I've created these triangles. I can do a lot of really nice things by smart dimensioning. So for instance, I can smart dimension this to that, and I can say that is ½ an inch, so 0.5 inches. Right. And then I can also smart dimension these two together and make them the same thing. So say this is 0.5 inches. Right? So that has now created this this kind of nice symmetry. Finally, if I really want to, I can change the size of this whole thing and make sure that it's away by a very specific amount. So I can go from here to there and say that that is 0.5 inches. And you can see that it has automatically readjusted all of the parts. Now finally I can be even more clever and make these, oops, I can make these tabs defined as well, which would be 0.5 inches. And then finally at least this one here, make this 0.5 inches. So now you can see that I'm going to unsmart dimension this, I'm going to exit this sketch, and now if I want to extrude and cut this, I'm not going to do the whole sketch as my contour. I'm just going to click out these areas. And then I'm going to do through all, and we're just going to press OK on that. And now you've got a pretty standard weight relief. That looks okay. The last thing that you want to do here is make it look a little bit nicer. You can see here that I have these really sharp corners, and so I can make some really, really generous fillets internal to this feature. manual. Fillet, items to fillet. Show selection toolbar. There we go. That's what I want. And I just want to do connected to start internal loops. There we go. That, and we're going to make this very generous and make it 5 millimeters instead. And this is going to be, let's see, now it's made this really nice looking weight relief, in which also your offcuts are not going to be, you know, cutting you to pieces effectively. Okay, so that is a basic tutorial on the last pieces of the robot, as well as some basic weight relief. Again, you can choose whatever weight relief you want to do. This is my particular favorite because I have very little creativity when it comes to artistry. All right, and thank you for watching.